Hi, I'm Goose, and welcome back to Color Theory in Minecraft. Today we'll be talking about atmospheric coloring, and I'll show you how to go from this to this. Let's start with a question. Look around and tell me, what color is the air? Although it may seem clear, the air is filled with tiny particles. Water vapor, pollen, pollution, dust, and all of these tiny particles reflect light in different ways, adding color to the air. This is called atmospheric color. It's why mountains look hazy, cities look smoggy, and it's even why the sky is blue. Blue light has a shorter wavelength than most colors, so it's more likely to run into particles in the air and bounce around, while other colors pass straight through. Since all the blue light is left bouncing around in the sky looks blue. Atmospheric color is different everywhere on Earth. It depends on the size and type of the particle in the air, the angle of the light, and how far away it is. When you look at something really far away, there's more air, and thus more particles between you and that object, increasing the strength of the atmospheric color. One of the most common places to observe this is mountains. You can see in these images that the further away the mountain is, the closer it is to the color of the sky. This is because there's literally more sky between you and that mountain. It is especially noticeable near the coast or by rivers because there's more water vapor in the air to reflect and scatter the light. One of the first artists to stress the importance of atmosphere in art was Leonardo da Vinci, and today we'll be examining and recreating a small section of one of his paintings. The process we'll be discussing is very applicable to 2D art as well, especially painting. Now here's the whole painting that we'll be pulling from, although we'll just be working on this tiny section up in the top left corner. Now the first thing I did is work out a very basic drawing, but I did something specific with the way that I laid this out. Each color represents a different plane of the painting. We have red being the foreground, the closest to the camera. We have green being the midground. Pink is the mountains that are in the background, and blue is the farthest point away, which is just the sky. The reason that it's important to separate each plane is because we are going to be adding different atmospheric color to each plane. Because the mountains that are the farthest away are going to have the most sky between us and them, they're going to have the same atmospheric coloring as the sky itself. Things will change a little bit when we get into the midground, and there will be almost no atmospheric coloring on the foreground. After I was happy with my drawing, I moved into local color. This is something I discuss a lot when I talk about building, working general to specific. What I mean by that is we can look at the foreground and we can pick one color that mostly matches every area of the foreground. We can pick one color that generally matches the midground, one color that generally matches the background, and then I broke the atmosphere in the sky into a couple different pieces. Although a lot of these are not the final colors we'll be using, it helps get things in perspective, and it's easier to go from this to the final product than it is to go from this to the final product. So we're working in the biggest step that we can that gets us as close to the completed piece as possible, while still being as easy as possible. I've also been working a lot with white concrete and snow block, and it never ceases to amaze me how dark white concrete actually is. You don't really notice it until you put it up against something like snow block, but it really is just a light gray. Now that we have the basic color of each section put in, we're going to move into a little bit of detailing and coloring. Now, I'm still keeping things pretty general, but the main thing that I want to point out is how the colors change from the mountains that are all the way in the background to the ones that get a little bit closer. Since these mountains are closer, the shadows are going to be a little bit darker, a little bit more pronounced. The lines are going to be a little bit more crisp, and we're going to be able to see more detail than the mountains that are farther away. The atmosphere obscures the details and unifies the color to be closer to that of the atmosphere. Because atmosphere is transparent and colored, there's one block that is very, very useful for doing atmosphere, and that is stained glass, because stained glass is transparent and colored. You also have to keep in mind when you're working with stained glass that it's going to unify the colors a little bit. If you put light blue over two blocks that are next to each other, the contrast between those colors isn't going to be as strong as it was before. Because of this, it can be a good idea to keep high contrast in this layer because you know you're going to lose some of that contrast in the next layer. This is the layer that we could really start working out details and final colors. Builds like this can become very overwhelming very quickly, but having all these steps previously that lay out a roadmap for you to work on can really help inform the next layer, and they make it a bit more manageable and a bit easier. You can see once we have this final layer of atmosphere that some areas like this that are a mountain are actually lighter than some of the darkest areas of the sky. We also have a lot of little hints of green and yellow, and putting a layer of green glass or lime green glass down and then blue on top of it did wonders to help bring out that green without it being too obvious. One of my favorite areas of this painting is these rocks right here. They really feel brown because you're looking at rocks, but when you really look at the details, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of orange, there's a lot of blue, because those are the lights that are being reflected off of this surface. They have just a tiny bit of atmosphere over top of them, making them look a little bit different than these rocks right here. If you keep in mind the atmosphere while you're coloring, you can get a lot more depth with a lot fewer blocks. This is still, for the most part, 2D, but you really do feel that sense of foreground and background, and it only gets stronger the farther away you get. This is particularly useful when you're doing paintings in Minecraft or doing perspective builds. This doesn't work super well when you're doing real world builds, where it's somewhere that you can go and walk around, because as you get closer, you want the atmospheric color to change, but that doesn't work when you're building like this. The best way to mimic this is to just increase the fog in your rendering in-game. It's going to have the same effect. And a lot of shaders have colored fog as well, so you can get a pretty good effect if you get your shader settings just right. If you'd like to download this build so that you can look at it closer in person, I'm going to have all 4 variants of it up on my Patreon. They're going to be available to all patrons and all Twitch subscribers on the Discord. Links are in the description for all of that stuff. I also have some shirts still. Those are up on my store. Link is also in the description. And thank you guys for watching and for subscribing and liking, commenting. All the stuff you guys do just 100% makes this worth it. And I am so grateful to the community that has found me and that I have found. I love all of you guys. You're fantastic. And I will see you next time. So until then, I hope you have a wonderful time, and go and make something. Go build something. Go draw something. Go sculpt something. Just go look at some art. Anything. It's good for your brain.